channel. I'm getting ready to redo my 1987 Mazda RX7 Turbo 2. It was originally my dad's car. He bought it in February of 1987 from Dan Eastman Jeep Renault in Bountiful, Utah. From there, the car went to Cheyenne, Wyoming with him after he got out of the Air Force, where it stayed until 2009. I begged my dad for years to let me have the car. There were so many Christmases I was hoping he was going to give it to me, things like that. And it never happened. And then just one day he called and said, "Hey, if you'll pay for my ticket out to or back home from Florida, and you fly out to Wyoming from Florida to pick it up, we'll drive it down there and it's yours." So back then I didn't have much money. And so it was a little bit, $600 I think it was for all the tickets and all that stuff, which it might as well have been $6 million at that point in life. But anyways, I got on a plane, flew out there. It had a little idle issue, which we found out was the intake boot, which is pretty common on them to crack. So I did what any responsible person would do and threw some duct tape around it to seal it as best I could. And we hit the road and had zero issues with the car. Got to Florida. And from there, I kind of started doing the typical mods to it. A front mount intercooler, exhaust, blow-off valve, things like that. But of course, once you start doing that, especially these RX-7s, sometimes you start running into idle issues and things like that. So I'd pulled the motor a few times and just kind of tried to clean things up the best I knew how, but just never seemed to come together. So it just lived in the snow and the ice and stuff like that. Fortunately, nothing else on the car was rusted out or had rust on it other than typical surface rust. So I bought a Pepsi GT spec exhaust system for it. Great exhaust system. I've always loved that exhaust system, especially on Supras and things like that. So I was like, well, let's give it a shot. And it sounds amazing. I still have it on the car now. I did an eBay intercooler. It doesn't fit correctly because it is a intercooler for a right-hand drive car, so it touches the master cylinder a little bit. So I'm gonna get that redone, that section of piping anyways redone. Everything else fits pretty decent. I removed the emissions on it, the rat's nest of just vacuum lines and that mess that always goes wrong with them. That's why I decided to kind of do a build for a different reason. I wanted to do a road trip with my dad. So I started learning how to paint thanks to a buddy of mine named Ron, which I failed miserably at. I've learned that I can't do body work, but I'm going to give it a shot one more time and see if I can finally get it now that I'm a little older and a little bit more patient. We'll see if that works. Over that course of time, I would call my dad for any wiring questions I had, or get his thoughts on the car and things like that. Of course, I was living in Florida still. He's living in Wyoming at the time, or still. Fast forward to May of 2011, May 23rd, 2011. I get a call from my dad, and he says, I got some bad news today. I have lung cancer. I have stage 4 cancer. And unfortunately, 3 months later, he passed away on August 23rd of 2011. So, I continued working on the car after that, off and on with the help of another buddy of mine named Chad, who does a lot with RX-7s, loves RX-7s, rotaries in general. However, I just kind of lost the motivation for the car after that. So it was primered and it just kind of sat for a long time. So finally I got the motivation back to kind of work on the car again. Once I lived in South Carolina, I really wanted to be able to drive the car and finally, do what I'd always planned on doing with the car and just enjoying it. So I posted on Facebook, hey, looking for a painter, somebody that can paint the car, come by, take a look at it, give me a quote, yada, yada, yada. So I get a message from this lady that says, hey, my husband's a painter, he could do that car easily. So we kind of messaged back and forth, and he came by to look at it. Said, hey, I can paint it for X amount of dollars. And I said, okay, man, money's not a big issue, I just want it done correctly. I just want the car painted correctly. So I dropped the car off at him, I pulled the motor out, towed the car over to him, had him paint the engine bay. Engine bay came out flawless. Great inch, but he just had it painted black, but it looked amazing. So I was like, okay, cool. Put the motor back in, put the car kind of back together, got everything hooked up, took it over to him, said, hey, once you get the first, you know, under the hood done or whatever section you do first, give me a holler. I want to come back and just take a look at it. I was painting it Midnight Purple 3 from a Nissan Skyline. At the time, I didn't have my Skyline, and I loved them. So I was like, well, if I can't get one right now, might as well paint one the same color. So he painted the underside of the hood. I went by, it looked amazing. So I said, okay, go ahead and continue on with the car. And it was downhill from there. It was taking him forever. The car was in pieces, which I knew it was going to look a little rough because, you know, it's getting paint. So of course the doors are off, the hatches out, the glass is out, all that stuff. However, it was taking him a long time to do it. So I'd go by and check on it, and not much progress would be done. Or he would do a bunch of progress, and, you know, kind of I'd be like, okay, great, car's going to get done. So finally, I got tired of waiting. I said, I'm gonna come pick the car up. The car was done, it was painted. It wasn't put back together though. And it was, you know, it had been about a month since he had painted it, to the car still not having the doors on it, the bumper on it, all that stuff. So I went and picked the car up, or had the car towed to my house, where the nightmare kind of got worse with the paint job. Of course, it was rough. It looked like the bodywork was done terribly. There were still low spots and high spots in it, which wasn't clear coat because the car never got wet sanded, so some of that probably could have been fixed, but there was still a big dent in the door that I don't remember being there when I took it to him. However, whatever, it could have been fixed before it was painted. The head unit in the car was brand new. It was a double-din DVD player, had overspray on it. The tires, brand new tires that I had on the car, had overspray on it. The seals on the sunroof was clear coated. So just a lot of things like that. So it just kind of set the car back again, and I'm just like, man, maybe this car's cursed. Maybe it's, you know, whatever. So I drove it a little bit here and there. You know, had my buddy tune it. It has a Haltech, had a Haltech Platinum Sport 1000 in it at the time. Hated that ECU. It would shut down for no reason. When I'm in the middle of driving it, overheat, sent it to Haltech, they had it fixed, brought it back, started doing the same thing again. So it was just a nightmare. So the cars just kind of followed me from, you know, from Wyoming to Florida, from Florida to South Carolina, to North Carolina, to Georgia, to Nebraska, and now in Kansas. You know, I feel like it runs fine. However, there's still just a lot of things I want to do to make it fun, do a road trip in it again with my son, something I didn't get to do with my dad. So should be a fun project. I'll kind of talk a little bit about what is currently done to the car mod wise and things like that. I'll try and do it all off of memory, and then I'll talk about more of the plans of exactly what I plan on doing to either fix some of those issues or correct them or whatever I need to do with it. Yeah, so stay tuned. Okay, for as far as mods on the car that I've currently done over the years, I think I've had the car for 13 years now. So, you know, starting from day one till now, it's kind of been, like I said earlier, an on and off project. Could have been done years ago if I would have really just applied and myself to it and done it. But like I said, I lost some motivation on the car. And so I'm excited to get back on it and do some fixing and repairing on it. So here's kind of what's done currently with the car. So it does have a turbo upgrade on it. It's a Master Power Turbo. Turbo sounds amazing. It's a great response. It's a cool turbo. It's an HKS turbo manifold on it. It has an eBay intercooler setup. The piping fits good with the exception of the by the master cylinder where it touches the brake reservoir. Because it's made for a right-hand drive car, the intercooler is. So get that fixed on it. It does, it has a Haltech ECU, the Elite 1500, or I'm sorry, Elite 1000 in it. I completely redid the harness back in May, built it from scratch again, all new wire connectors, terminals, sleeving, everything. So that part's done nicely and labeled, and it looks real good. I did a wire tuck on it years ago, probably 10, 11, 12 years ago. And I wish I hadn't done that. It cleaned up the engine bay a little bit, but it doesn't, I don't like it. It makes me nervous about some of the wiring in there, so I may pull that out. I'll probably redo it again just because it's already been done, but it'll be done a little bit cleaner this time. There's a bunch of wiring behind the bumper that I'd like to get cleaned up from where I did the wire tuck and just kind of extended some stuff, and it's all bunched together. So I really like to kind of reroute that and clean it up and see what we can do with that. You can't see it when the bumper's on, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of particular about the cars, so I want that to be done correctly. Interior wise, it's basically stock interior. I have a Pepsi gauge, boost gauge, and a AEM wideband gauge in there. It's got I believe it's a Pioneer, maybe JVC single DIN head unit in there. Profect B boost controller, and really that's about it when it comes to the interior of the car. It's still stock cluster. It's got an aftermarket steering wheel, which I don't know, I don't really like. I might change that back to either the stock one or find a little bit nicer one. I just don't like how it feels. Suspension wise, it's got BC coilovers on it, Racing Beat sway bars. And I believe it has white line end links. I could be wrong on that. I'd have to go back and look at my receipts. The outside of it has Gramlite 57 DR wheels, which I love. I have those on my Skyline as well. I may get those powder coated through this process. Also, the brake calipers, they're stock brake calipers, but I might get those powder coated. I painted them white years ago because we were going to the Rotary Rally up in Tennessee or North Carolina. So I just painted them white just to make them look a little bit better than they did. However, one, white gets dirty. Number two, it's paint, so it chips. And it was just a quick job, so I'm gonna redo that. I'll send those out. I'm gonna get the intercooler piping powder coated as well. Sound system wise, it is there's no speakers in it at the moment. I do plan on adding a sound system later down the road after I get the paint work done, which I'll talk about here in a second, and get the engine stuff back in, make sure I just feel comfortable with it. It does have battery relocation. I relocated to one of the bins right behind the passenger seat. I'm gonna clean that up as well. Once again, a lot of this was done when I didn't have much money, so I was kind of doing some of this stuff with what money I had, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. So I'm gonna clean up some of this stuff. I'm gonna keep the exhaust system on it. I love that exhaust system. I need new windshield in it. It just is pitted. It's not cracked, but it's pitted. So I'm gonna try and track down a new windshield for it. And like I said earlier, new gaskets for the engine. And really that's about it. Paint wise, I'm not sure what color yet I'm gonna go with. My Skyline's white, so I thought about doing it white as well, with kind of a bright colored caliper, and I don't know what color wheels yet. I might do white wheels on it. I might do a colored wheel. I'll decide that later down the road. I still got a long ways to go before that gets done. I'd like to do that as I'm painting the car. So we'll see what that brings. But that is it as far as mods and plans for the car. Looking forward to making the videos. I'll kind of do a video tour of the car. As far as the car is concerned, like I said, it needs some love, but overall it's a good car. It's got the Type S ball valve. The piping fits, like I spoke earlier, pretty good, but as you can see, hopefully I can see this on camera, it touches right there. And then there's also not enough room for the sandwich plate for my oil filter, for the sensors, oil pressure sensor and things like that. So once I get just this section here of piping done, the intercooler will fit a lot better. I'm also going to upgrade to an S5 alternator, get that done. But you can see some of the wiring down here is just not the prettiest. It's almost embarrassing, to be honest with you. Put a little nameplate on here for my dad. Like I said, this was his car, but yeah, I'm gonna pull the motor out, kind of get things cleaned up. As you can see, it needs a little bit of love, but it's not horrible. Interior of the car, that's the brackets for the front bumper mounts. Those will go back on, of course. Steering wheel, I don't know what I'm gonna do with that yet. But I 3D printed the mount for the boost controller and the controller for the gauge up here. But the interior overall is in pretty decent shape. Battery relocation, I'm gonna get a nicer one that's a little cleaner looking, safer, all that good stuff. But overall, the interior of the car is not bad. I have all the pieces to it. It's just a matter of putting them in. I just haven't done it over the years. The wheels, they're good. Nice clean wheels, no issues with them whatsoever, so they'll stay. I do have the front bumper, OEM bumper up there, and I have a factory rear bumper over on that side up top that will most likely go back on the car. And the side skirts will come off and just kind of clean it up, make it I always say clean and sexy car. So hopefully once all this is done, it'll be a nice looking car and won't have no issues. It's going to need more different seals and stuff like that for the doors and the sunroof, and everything works on the car though. It's just, like I said, he clear coated the seals for some stupid reason, so I'm gonna end up replacing those. But yeah, so we'll get going on it.